Yeah, welcome to Jeddah Corniche Circuit, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix 2024. Yeah, the FP1 is done. Before the FP1 review, these are the things that happened overnight that we need to update you with. A lot of teams brought track-specific upgrades to the track because the Jeddah Corniche Circuit is the fastest street track on the F1 championship calendar this year. Maximum speed of about 335 kilometers per hour, 42 gear changes, and full throttle is 83%. So that's the fastest you can see. And the average pit stop is 21 seconds. The race distance is about 308.45 kilometers, and the number of laps is 50 laps. The circuit length is long. That's about 6.174 kilometers. Lap record I told you in our last video, Lewis Hamilton in 2021, that's 1 minute 30 seconds 7/10, and he also got the pole position and he won the race that year. That was a Grand Slam GP for him. The safety car possibility is 100%, and the front tire demanding track. The camber limit for the front is about 3.25 degrees. At the rear is about 1.75 degrees, and the minimum tire pressure is 24 psi for the front and 21 psi for the rear. That's the things you need to know. So all the teams brought tiny rear wings, but the Mercedes rear wings look so tiny. It looks so small. The Red Bull rear wings is so beautiful. Red Bull Sergio Perez also had a gearbox change, and the driveline changed as to this Grand Prix. He's already changing his gearbox, and the gearbox case said the rear wheel drive is already changing for this race. That's for Sergio Perez, which means there's some reliability issues with them. We don't know if Mercedes have really sorted out their reliability issues on eating, but we will know during the race. Also, we need to look at Chris Horner's issue. The lady that brought up the case against him had been suspended by Oracle Red Bull Racing, and this case is getting more tense. Off the track, there have been different talks, different situations arising. Max Verstappen's dad, Max Verstappen question, Chris Horner not wanting to answer to so many things, and I think FIA should just do their due diligence on it, because transparency is needed so that we can know what, where, and what we need to do. Because if there's no transparency, we are still going back to the dark ages in F1, and the social media, the whole world now is in light. We need to know what is happening and why he's been accused. We need to see the truth behind it, why it was being suspended, and again, the videos, WhatsApp messages were leaked. We need to know what is happening. And FIA President Ben Sulayem also under investigation for alleged interfering in races. All these things we need to really put it to bed, because this silly season started on a crashing mode and it's already getting more silly and more crazier. So we need to look for how to bring balance to all these things to make racing more sustainable and more balanced. Liberty Media also need to look into all these things so that we can bring the truth to people and make sure they get the best. So Max Verstappen shut off from where he left last week and back in FP1 with the first position in first practice. Alonso coming second and Sergio Perez coming third, and this shows there's going to be a close battle on this track, because you can see the top 10 really giving it all. The Mercedes, the Ferrari, the McLaren, and the Red Bull and the Aston Martin are really giving it fire for fire, what they can really put on board. But what we've learned here is that the long runs, I think the Mercedes looks very strong on the long run. The Mercedes and the Red Bull look strong on the long run in the FP1, and the qualifying pace is very similar, very similar. They're having few tenths behind each other, and we'll see the reflection of the qualifying in FP2. In FP1 we didn't really see much because they were running different setups. The Mercedes was a little bit bouncy and off the real setup for Lewis Hamilton, but the setup for George Russell is still on course, on board, and they're getting it right. So we don't know what will happen in FP2. And for the Red Bulls, they are just straight on point. The Ferraris are straight on point. Alonso is looking powerful, fortified, and looking strong on Jeddah Corniche Circuit, while Lando Norris too is looking so strong and so mindful in what he's doing with their car. Though the McLaren said they will be so close to the Mercedes that the Mercedes will be their main focus this race. Will Mercedes be their fight this race? I don't know, but up until FP2 would know if Mercedes will be their fight in this race. The Williams do not really look off, but they are testing so many things. The AS team also are giving it the V car, but Alpine are still looking off. I think them getting back into competitive mode will be after like 6-7 races, because they've changed some technical stuff and some back-end stuff just to make sure they get back into good racing. So I hope it's going to be good for them. The Kick Sauber also, they've been fully taken over by Audi this weekend, so we know that by 2026 Audi fully back in F1. But from next year, I think we'll be seeing glimpses of Audi coming out. Up until FP2, we'll tell you much about what is going to happen in the race. So the FP2, we got into it and shows that something sort of what happened in Bahrain last week. The weather is better, a little little bit hotter than Bahrain, but because of the water around that track, it makes the track a little bit gentle on tire, but the water around the track makes it more gentle on tire, and also there are no overheatings, then there are no drivers suffering heat like they did in Qatar. And that was one of the things I talked about in our video after Qatar last year, that the Qatar government and FIA needs to look at that. They need to bring ponds, bring more water around the track so that it will be sustainable, it will be more healthy for the drivers, so that they won't suffer the same fate they suffered in Qatar last year. Even if they are having the race later in November, at least if there are waters, ponds, like in Saudi Arabia, there's a pond in the middle of the track, just like it is in Melbourne Park. There are ponds there. I think there are 2 ponds in Qatar, so it will take the heat away from the track. Then there'll be water in the air. With water around there, it will be less humid, so the drivers will have clean air to breathe. You understand? So Qatar government needs to look into that. So back into what I was saying. Now, the Aston Martin really came out blazing in speed. Fernando Alonso looks as if he got some speed in that Mercedes power unit. Now, in the first practice, they had some clippings, which means they reduced their power, their PU output on their engine. That might mean even in this second practice, they are not even optimum to par. And I think they are not the only one that reduced it, but it shows on their qualifying run pace and their long run pace that they have clippings. But in that FP1, they were so close to the Red Bull up there. But in FP2, they were like 3/10 away, which shows they have the engine power, they have the right aerodynamics to move around that track, and their rear wings is more draggy. They have a more draggy rear wings. I think something is right for Aston Martin, but we cannot say now until tomorrow. But in FP2, we had Lewis Hamilton impeding Logan Sargent while he was trying to give way to Carlos Sainz. They did not know. The stewards will look at it. And in this FP2, there are lots of impeding all around. And I think the FIA and F1 stewards need to talk to these drivers so that they can give them a delta time that they can work with, and also where they should be. And their teams also should contribute in making things easy for these drivers, because sometimes when the teams don't come online or look at the GPS to tell them, okay, there's somebody coming behind you, park on so side, it might affect the driver, because looking at the rear mirror may not tell it all, especially on this track. Because if you see a driver on a slow lap or trying to warm up his or tire behind you, you cannot see a high-speed driver right coming. It will be very difficult. I think the FIA F1 needs to talk about that before tomorrow, so as for safety reasons. Then the Red Bull too were littered on fire, but they are not as fast as the Aston Martin. We don't know what they are hiding, or is there something they are not showing us, but it shows there's a close bunch up on this track. Personally, because it's a high-speed track, we can see a bunch up of Ferraris also around them, showing they have decent pace. Now, this is a track for power unit and aerodynamics, so let's see how these guys go. And if you look at the race pace of these teams, you see the Red Bull are still constant. Max Verstappen is doing constantly 1 minute 33s, while his teammate is doing 1 minute 34s. But the Ferraris are like 5/10 away from him, 1 minute 34 something, while the McLaren are closer. The Mercedes are far off in pace. That's the long run pace I'm talking about. The Mercedes are far off in long run pace, and I don't know how they will do that. The Haas are next, but the Aston Martin, I think they've traded a lot for long run pace. They are doing well on their qualifying simulation, while on their long run pace, they are nowhere to be found. They are behind the Haas. If it comes to race, I think they will be losing. And the F1 had penalized the Mercedes team for not telling Lewis Hamilton that he has a fast-running car in Logan Sargent behind him when he impeded him, while Lewis Hamilton had been given warning. His team was penalized €15,000, and I think that is a good warning for Mercedes. I think they should have told Lewis Hamilton what was happening behind him, in which they didn't do. But tomorrow in FP3 and in qualifying, we'll see which driver will come on top. But this is looking like Bahrain a little bit, but in a different way. But will the Mercedes powered cars be able to come up on top? Because the McLaren too are looking powerful on this circuit, but we've not really seen what Mercedes can do. There are lots of setup error on Lewis Hamilton's car. There are little mistakes on George Russell's part. He could have niched the P1 in FP2, but some mistakes on the last corner and on the fourth turning that he made. And also on Lewis Hamilton, he's had his rear everywhere. He cannot control the rear of the car, which is giving him issues. Not only him, the Williams are having this same issue, and also the Kick Sauber team. But we cannot say yet, like I said, but up until FP3 tomorrow and qualify, we'll be able to tell you which team or which driver should be able to win this race. Up until then, I love you guys. Yeah, bye.